I now call this meeting of the Kansas State University Student Governing Association Student Senate to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I want to begin our Student Senate meeting taking place on Thursday, November 10th, 2022, with a land acknowledgement. We recognize that Kansas State University, as the first land-grant institution, stands on the ancestral lands of the Kaw people. Our state of Kansas is home to 4 federally recognized Native nations: the Iowa, Kickapoo, Prairie Band Potawatomi, and Sac and Fox. We must remember that the land serving as the foundation for this institution was, and still is, stolen land acquired by white settlers. We pledge our commitment to creating decolonized spaces at the university while advocating for the support and future success of Indigenous faculty, staff, and students at K-State. And with that, Juan will take it away with our first roll call.
Thanks, Evan, and good evening, everyone. Anderson.
Here.
Bannister. Barron.
Here.
Blood.
Here.
Broughton.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Carey.
Here.
Compton. Coy.
Here.
Davidson. DePaz. Dole.
Here.
Gromas. Heatherman.
Here.
Hoffman.
Here.
Hubnig.
Here.
Kamen.
Here.
Kappelman.
Here.
Kirshen.
Here.
Kermer.
Here.
Labidi. Long.
Here.
Middaugh.
Here.
Morello. Noretti. Navarro.
Here.
Howry.
Here.
Pelton.
Here.
Phillips.
Here.
Pilchard.
Here.
Pondillo. Syat Carly.
Here.
Syat Nick.
Here.
Solomon. Shear. Schreier.
Here.
Stout.
Here.
Strout.
Here.
Talbert.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
And Wolf. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, thanks everybody. We have a couple first open period speakers this evening, but we're going to start with John Verus, who's a city planner for the city of Manhattan. Well, works for the planning department for the city of Manhattan. You can come on up.
Do I need to talk into a microphone?
You can say the podium if you want to, or if you want to walk around.
Do I need a microphone, or can you all hear me?
You need a microphone for the folks on Zoom.
Definitely don't want to miss them. First off, I want to thank everybody for allowing me to be on your agenda this evening and taking up your time. Hopefully it won't be too much. Next, I want to thank Nick for arranging all this and putting me in touch with the powers that be to get me into the room. As I was introduced, I am a city planner in the Community Development Department at the City of Manhattan, Kansas. This fall, we just wrapped up our first housing study in 22 years. In the planning world, all of our decision making is data driven, and so to go 22 years without new data, especially in a very complex and nuanced field such as housing and housing planning, we were presented with quite the challenge. So we're very excited that that study is done and has been approved by City Commission, which then allows us to continue our research and follow up with strategies that will hopefully help address some of the challenges and needs of the housing market. With that said, the reason I came tonight is twofold. First, to share that information with you all because you're a key constituent of the community as residents, whether you're here 1 year or all 4 or more. It's important that you have a positive experience, and we want to hear from you, and we want to be engaged with you, and we want to be engaged with you on this topic of housing. So first was to come to tell you about that report and then introduce myself in case you have questions, topics you'd like to discuss. I'll be able to stay afterwards and you can interact with me and I'll be able to give you my information. Within that, I'm also here to answer any questions you might have about the housing study or the next steps. And then the second reason is I actually have a request of this body. I I don't know the rules. Should I just ask it, or how does that work? Okay. One of the first strategies we want to implement based out of the housing market analysis is the formation of a workforce housing steering committee. Starting January 1st, 2023, and for the next 10 years, the city will be collecting a sales tax. 10% of that sales tax will go towards workforce housing initiatives. In order to oversee the efficient and effective spending and development of workforce housing based off of that 10%, we needed to form a workforce housing steering committee. Again, because you're an important constituency, we wanted to make sure that you were involved and heard. And so I am here tonight on behalf of the city to ask if you all will consider a position on our workforce housing steering committee. Our preference is for the position to be filled by somebody in SGA. The position will be ex officio, so it will not be named by the individual. In case that individual needs to vacate the role will still be there. The commitment would be for 3 years, 2023 through 2025. The meetings would be once a quarter, and they will be on somewhat of a structured basis. You'll know what those 4 meetings, topics, and goals are before you even set foot. We will provide you with the basic training that is expected from our steering committee members, and then we can provide a resource for any other information you want. Within the steering committee, there's also the expectation that it will only have a single charge, and that charge will be to create policy and a framework for making recommendations on policies and programs on how best for the city commission to spend that workforce housing sales tax. So again, short time frame commitment, not much commitment within 1 year, and you won't be running crazy all over the place looking for new topics and information and research. It's pretty specific what we're going to ask for you. I will be the staff liaison. Each of those 4 meetings, I will come with a direct agenda and an ask of you. And again, I'll be able to provide you with any information you need up front and be happy to guide you through the process. So not sure what else to ask, but hopefully you all will consider that, and I will circle back with somebody. So that's all I have for right now. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Senator Hubenik.
This workforce steering committee, when you define workforce, what does that mean? Is that for potentially graduate students or students who are working, or is that for specifically tradespeople or people working downtown?
That's a great question. Challenge is there is no such definition. There's no national definition or industry definition. It's a catchy little slogan that marketing people came up with, and then they fed it to politicians, and then the politicians ran with it, and then I got paid to come in and help define it. So we are defining workforce housing here by first reviewing housing and urban developments, area median income brackets. I'm not sure if you are familiar with those. You may have heard this before, AMI. And it usually looks at a household income by percentage. So these percentages become buckets, if you will. And we established a workforce housing definition from 60% AMI up to 120% AMI. So kind of those classifications you just mentioned are probably all going to be in there. And we were very conscious about it not being that specific because I'm sure a lot of you know, we are in the midst of a very challenging housing market crisis, not just here, but it's in the state, it's in the nation, it's around the world. So I'm afraid we are not unique. And what we're finding is that Manhattan has housing needs across the entire spectrum of what we call affordability, if that makes sense. And so, so we weren't, in some ways it's good, in some ways it's going to be a challenge that we don't have a very clear definition. The benefit is we're going to try to help as many people as possible. So yeah, it could be a graduate student, it's going to be nurses, it's going to be teachers. The challenge is in today's current housing market and economy, it could also be a two-person household that have what we would usually consider a very healthy income. But with the challenges of inflation, higher credit scores being demand, this city has a very low supply of housing in general. we're kind of crunched. So it's a broad definition. So
Thank you.
Yeah, Chair Long.
You mentioned it was a 3-year commitment. Are you looking for a student that could fill that for 3 years, or is a student that would?
no, again, our request is just for a position, just for that scenario. We're not ignorant of the. I mean, I know I'm old, but I do remember what college was like. I'm not going to ask an 18-year-old to commit for the next 3 years when they're worried about getting through Thanksgiving break. So again, our request is just a position, if that makes sense. That's why we use the term ex officio, so that slot will be on the Workforce Housing Steering Committee. Whoever rotates through it is perfectly fine. Again, we don't expect one person to commit for 3 years. So.
Yeah, Caucus Leader Navarro.
Yes, so you mentioned that there would be meetings every four quarters. For summers and for like students that don't live in Manhattan, are there options for them to join these meetings via Zoom?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And it'll be a public meeting, so it'll meet all public meeting requirements, which require it to be by Zoom. So.
Chair Thomas.
Yeah, what is the rest of the makeup of the committee gonna look like?
In terms of.
Like membership? So like you're asking for an SGA position, what are the other positions on the committee gonna look like?
Sure. So they haven't been formally presented to the City Commission, so if you don't mind, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail until we get that memo created. I will highlight some of the other ex officio positions, though. So much like the SGA role, we'll have one of our own city commissioners who will also serve on this steering committee. We'll also have a member of our Manhattan Urban Area Planning Board. That'll be an ex officio position. We're in talks right now with the ex officio position, or role being the off-campus housing support position under Student Life, I believe, here.
That's correct.
Sorry?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. We'll also have with you the parallels. We always have to have somebody from Fort Riley, so we'll have somebody from Fort Riley based probably on the civilian side, based on their housing specialization. And then outside of those ex officio positions, we have an application process. And so if you're interested, you could also apply if you don't want to pursue the ex officio position. And for those application-based positions, we have broadcasted out to the community, and we're really looking for members of the housing market to please kind of step up and bring their expertise, knowledge, and day-to-day data with them to this committee. So that could be somebody who works for a nonprofit. We hopefully will get people from the financial institution sector, and then obviously developers, home builders. So that's kind of the makeup.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Our steering committees go really large, so.
Vice Chair Hoffman.
You meant the ex officio position you want to be somebody to be in SGA. What are like other qualifications if like multiple people want to be in that position?
That would be up for this body to decide.
Oh.
We have no expectations other than our preference is to have it be somebody who's already in a representative role, which is why we came before you all.
Are there any further questions? Yeah, Intern Glasscock.
Is the housing supply problem considered a priority by local officials, or is it kind of something that's been put on the back burner for now?
Wow, you really want me to get fired, don't you?
Because I would assume that it's a pretty big issue if there's a committee being formed, but.
Yeah. Sorry, it's late. I'm a little punchy. Great question. It is a priority. The challenge is I don't speak on behalf of the elected officials, so but I can tell you it is a priority to them. The challenge is it's a priority on a lot of different fronts right now. So if I can tell you it's the #1 issue, I don't know, right? And I say that because we also have a housing and homeless related issue. We also have so we're talking about workforce housing. We're also talking about affordable and needed housing. Does that make sense? And so we were talking about those buckets. That's individuals, households 60% and under. We have a supply issue. We have what we call a condition issue. I imagine you all live in safe, clean, environmentally sound housing, right? Not everybody does in this city. So it's a priority, but right now it's a real challenge because it's coming at us from multiple fronts. So. Yeah, you're welcome.
Senator Schreier.
So I just wanted to ask a clarification. So when you said that we were getting people from Fort Riley to be represented on the committee, it's only going to be a civilian position from Fort Riley that's going to be represented?
That's up to them to decide.
Oh,
A lot of times they send over their civilian personnel because their housing is split between civilian and DoD officials. It's kind of a two-headed monster sometimes. So yeah, no problem. Because they have personnel who live on post and off post, so they kind of have to balance multiple sectors of their own, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was an Army brat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Are there any further questions? I actually have one.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that the 10% of the sales tax that's going to be collected over the next 10 years will go towards investing in workforce housing.
Correct.
Do you have like a general idea of the type of investments you'd like to be making?
I do. The first is that we don't go 10 years or 20 years before we do our next study. And luckily, I feel like we have that support. To that gentleman's question, we have that support inside City Hall. Housing planning is now a priority. So I don't think it's going to be 22 years before our next study. And our intentions are to make housing planning more conscious, which is one of the reasons I got hired. So what that means is we're going to start collecting data, storing data, sharing data. We're going to be better about building bridges and reaching out to local and regional partners so that we're hopefully further ahead of the challenges and not always trying to catch up. We will also be increasing our activity at the federal and state competitive grant and loan application process. We will also be reviewing our own internal regulations called the Manhattan Development Code and Comprehensive Plan and Future Land Use Map. Those are all three industry jargon terms that help guide the development of the city. We'll be reviewing those for any kind of barriers or challenges to housing development that we've put in there unconsciously. And if we can, we'll remove those or lessen those so that we can increase the supply of housing, again, across the entire spectrum, but specifically in that workforce housing. And then if we're lucky, maybe we'll have some money left over and we'll throw it at people, right? Probably developers, nonprofits, and then if we're lucky, maybe individual household programs such as maybe a down payment assistance program would be kind of cool, or a, hey, don't move to Chicago once you graduate K-State and stick around and buy a house and fix it up loan. I don't know if that's going to go over very well because I wanted to get the hell out of where I went to college, but yeah, so we'll see. I don't want to be arrogant about this, so don't take this the wrong way. When I say we're going to have roughly an estimated $650,000 a year, that might sound like a lot of money to you. In the housing world, that's nothing. I can't even build you 3 new affordable houses for that. So it's going to be a challenge. We've got ideas. There's policies and programs that have been well researched. There's case studies that have been working in other Kansas communities. We've got legal and finance prepared to move on day one. I think we're going to be successful. As Nick knows, him and I work together. We're peers. I'm a pretty negative guy, so I want to make sure we keep the bar right where it needs to be, which is 650 is not a lot. So our priority is going to be, it's not going to be like we're going to pick winners over losers. The main goal is, number one is, does this option leverage that 650,000? Does that make sense? And that will be the policy and program that immediately rises to the top of my list that I then recommend to the committee. Does that make sense? Because if there's something out there where we can take that 650, put it with something from a grant or a loan or some other program and get it to $1 million, that's much better. Because then that means we can reuse that 650 and maybe it goes next year and next year. So, yeah. Was that a vague enough answer for you? Great.
Any further questions? Senator Cromer.
Does that new shiny building that's going to go in Aggieville, the Kites parking lot, have housing planned in it at all?
That's a great question. I believe there was some residential, but I am not on that team. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think there is. Not a lot though. I can't imagine. Yeah, because I think the ground floor and the first floor were definitely commercial. So, yeah.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thanks so much, John.
Thank you. Do we need to follow up or?
I would appreciate a little bit more information about like the timeline for the decision.
Okay.
Other than that,
Sounds good.
thank you.
All right, thanks.
Okay, our second open period speaker for this evening, first open period speaker for this evening, speaking to us in her capacity as a Student Foundation member and not Deputy Attorney General, Hattie Polson.
Hey guys. Oh, it is. Okay, hi everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Hattie Polson. I am the Deputy Attorney General. However, tonight I'm a member of Student Foundation. So I'm here speaking on behalf of STUFO. Who here has heard of K-State Proud? Wonderful. So for those of you who do not know, K-State Proud is a fundraising campaign ran by students for students. We raise dollars to reallocate to students in financial need that have exhausted all other forms of financial help. So this next Wednesday, November 16th, we will be running an online campaign called Proud Stay to Help Students Stay, where we hope to raise $25,000 in 24 hours. This is absolutely doable. Last year we raised $23,000, so we're shooting a little higher this year. That would raise enough money for between 15 to 20 student awards to help students stay on campus. For those of you who are familiar with what's going on in Iran right now, a lot of our Iranian peers are unable to contact their families, their bank accounts, etc. And so our past couple awards that we have distributed have gone to people who are directly affected by that crisis. So that's just kind of an example of what these awards help with. So be sure to follow us on socials. Every Student Foundation member is going to have their own giving link, so you can give through me, which is so fun. You can also give through Ethan Brown. He's in Student Foundation. He was supposed to do this, but apparently he's busy tonight. Every donation helps. We're going to be doing bingo boards. If you would like to donate for a t-shirt, that's a whole other campaign, but you can still do that right now. Thank you all so much for your time tonight. Are there any questions for me?
Vice Chair Hoffman.
How many scholarships do you guys give out?
They are not scholarships. They are student opportunity awards. This means that there are no prerequisites that a person has to meet other than being in financial distress. So we try to be very intentional with that language, that it's not a scholarship nor a grant. We quite frankly just give out money. I'm sorry, back to the original question. That caught me up. You said about how many students do we assist? I believe just in like the last 3 weeks, no, maybe last month, between like 6 and 8. So if you stretch that over the span of a year, obviously different times we'll have more student supply. And for example, we have less student supply in the summer, but our committee does meet in the summer to still help students. Ethan Brown is actually the chair of that committee, so he is the one reading those applications and sitting down and deciding how much money to allocate towards students. So if you want to ask questions about how we allocate dollars, he's the one to ask.
Are there any further questions? Senator Hubenig.
Is this just for undergraduate students, just U.S. citizens?
No, this is for anyone who is a K-State student, undergraduate, graduate, PhD. Age does not matter. Country of origin does not matter. In fact, majority of our awards have been awarded to our international students, and graduate students are typically the ones we see who are more in need than undergrad. Great question.
Senator Scheer.
After a student is awarded this award, are there any requirements about them staying as students for a while, or is it?
No.
Yeah, cool.
Our goal is to help them stay on campus, so obviously we're looking for those students who are maybe in their last semester of college and their car breaks down and they can't drive to work. We want to fix their car ASAP so they can ride out that last semester. But no, there are no post check boxes for our awardees.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thanks so much, Hattie.
Wonderful. Give next week.
Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and move into approval of the minutes for the evening. The minutes were distributed on Tuesday along with the agenda and legislation tracking information. Are there any questions or corrections for the minutes? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the minutes? Chair Thomas.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the minutes will stand approved. With that, we'll go ahead and move into the announcements for the evening. So first up, the November Kansas Board of Regents meeting will be taking place on campus on Wednesday and Thursday next week. KBOR will have their regularly scheduled meetings on Wednesday, and KSU SJ will have a chance to meet with them on Thursday. The time has since been finalized and changed, so anyone is welcome to attend our meeting with KBOR on Thursday from 11:30 a.m. to noon. Same place in the MSC, rooms 204 and 205.
One Oak room.
Oh, now it's in the
1 Oak room.
One Oak room. So that has changed twofold.
I'll send an email out to everybody.
Parker is going to send an email out to everybody. And then next, the Legislative Advocates application is now open. Anyone who is interested in advocating for K-State students in Topeka this spring is highly encouraged to apply. The application is due November 16th. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Logan Cohn. There's Logan's email, and the application can be found at that link there. And then there's a link to the proxy form, so if you need to be absent from Student Senate for any reason, please fill out the proxy form. There's a Student Senate Zoom request form. If you can still attend Student Senate, but you need to attend via Zoom, you can fill out that form, and I will send you the Zoom link. And then if you want to give props to someone in Student Senate, please fill out the Student Senate shout-out form. And the SGA Member of the Week this week is Ibrahim Chiefchi. Ibrahim did a great job filling in as Speaker Pro Tempore last week and has been very involved on the Strategic Oversight Committee and the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So thank you for your hard work and dedication to SGA, Ibrahim. There's our upcoming events calendar. I'm realizing now I forgot to change the dates, so those days are wrong. But anyway, you will face many defeats in life, but never let yourself be defeated, by Maya Angelou. That was the quote of the week. And with that, we'll go ahead and move into our approval of appointments for the evening. So is there a motion to consider Resolution 41? Chair Long.
I move to consider Resolution 41. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 41. If the author will please come forward.
Okay, this was Resolution 22-2341, approval of KSU SGA Phase 2 intern. Authors Peyton Lynn, sponsors Kathleen Cowell, Evan Porter, and Parker Volgamore. Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association intern program was sufficiently advertised, whereas one individual attended at least 3 sessions of Phase 1 or equivalent of the KSU SGA intern program, whereas the individual has fulfilled the requirements of Phase 1 of the KSU SGA intern program and has applied to become a Phase 2 intern, and whereas one individual has been selected to continue on to Phase 2 of the KSU SGA intern program. Be it resolved that the following individual be approved as a Kansas State University Student Governing Association Phase 2 intern for the 2022-2023 term, and that is Jackson Terhar, who is not here tonight.
Thanks, Peyton. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Okay, seeing none, you may take your seat. And with that, we'll go ahead and move into our committee reports. Oh, you're so right. So is there a motion to approve Resolution 41 unanimously? Chair Long.
I move to approve Resolution 41 unanimously. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 41 unanimously. Are there any objections? Seeing none, Resolution 41 will stand approved, and we will get that intern sworn in hopefully next week. And with that, we'll go ahead and move into our committee reports for the night. So are there any committee chairs that would like to give a report tonight? Chair Thomas.
Hey guys, so I'm the Tuition Enhancements Committee Chair, and we are doing Educational Opportunity Fund this semester. We finished all of our presentations, and this next week at our meeting, we are going to be creating our legislation for all of the Educational Opportunity Fund allocations. So if you want to be a part of those conversations, or if you have any questions about EOF, let me know. Our meeting is going to be on Monday at 7:30 in the CSI conference room.
Thanks, Kate. Are there any questions for Chair Thomas? Okay, seeing none, you may take your seat. Are there any further committee chairs that would like to give a report tonight? Chair Long.
On a similar note, the Student Allocations Committee spent 11 hours in the CSI conference room last weekend getting the sports club stuff figured out. You're going to see that introduced tonight. If you have thoughts, opinions, and changes you'd like to see on it, let's try to do those in committee so we all don't sit here for 3 hours.
Yeah, thanks, Jacob. Are there any questions for Chair Long? Okay, seeing none, you may take your seat. And with that, are there any further committee chairs that would like to give a report tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into our directors' reports for the evening. Are there any directors that would like to give a report tonight? President Vogelmore.
Okay, hey, good evening, everyone. Just a couple things real quick to reiterate from the announcements and some updates from the executive branch. First of all, I want to extend a welcome again to our KSU Salina campus SGA folks. They came and visited campus today, joined us for a cabinet meeting. We had some great discussion. They hosted us, was this 2 weeks ago now on Salina's campus. We had an awesome time there. It was a ton of fun. So glad to have them here and be able to return the favor. Also, I just wanted to shout out real quick, shoot me an email if you're interested in the Housing Steering Committee. Generally, our branch helps nominate folks for different committees. There are some other kind of similar initiatives around campus related to housing, so I have a few folks in mind that might be interested, but if that's something that stood out to you, there's a lot of great questions asked, shoot me an email. That way I can have you kind of in the queue on the list of folks who might be interested in that sort of thing. Otherwise, the legislative advocates application was in the announcements. Just want to share on Logan Cohn's behalf. So the legislative advocates, this is a really, really fun group, and you don't have that much time-related responsibilities with it. Essentially, what we do is we plan to get together and go advocate in Topeka on behalf of K-State and higher education. We're like the little lobbyists for K-State. We advocate for funding, for deferred maintenance projects, for whatever it is that we want to rally behind as a university for state funding. It's a fun group. That's really the only responsibility. We'll meet a couple times to prepare, but otherwise that's it. That application is due next Wednesday. So I encourage you all to go ahead and throw in an application and join us for that. Otherwise, Evan mentioned the Kansas Board of Regents visit. Board of Regents is the 9-member board who oversees really all things higher education in the state of Kansas. They generally meet once a month in Topeka for their regular business meetings. Approximately once a semester, they'll try and visit one of the Regent schools for their meetings. That's what's going on next Wednesday. So Wednesday is all the regularly scheduled board meeting. I want to extend a special invitation at noon on Wednesday to join us for the Student Advisory Committee meeting. That's going to take place over here in the CSI conference room. The Student Advisory Committee is basically just made up of all the student body presidents from the Regent schools and anybody else we want to bring. So usually there's 3 or 4 of us that go to Topeka, but I think it would be awesome if there was like 20 of us from K-State SGA there for that meeting. So that'll be fun. We'll probably talk some about our legislative advocacy and what we want to do from the university's Regents perspective, I guess, for Kansas Higher Ed Day and a number of other things. So come join us for that meeting. But then also the rest of the Regents meetings are public. You can watch them online, watch them on YouTube, or join in person during that day on Wednesday. So feel free to do so. But more importantly is on Thursday. So the third Thursday is their actual visit portion of this 2-day thing. So they'll be touring campus, meeting with different student groups, and our chance to meet, with the Regents is 11:30 on Thursday, as Evan said, over in the One Oak room. So we have a presentation put together where we're going to address how we invested our student fee increase last year and break down some of those things. But that would just be another opportunity to really show off how invested our student government is. So I really encourage you all to join us there 11:30 next Thursday. Otherwise, the University Strategic Planning Advisory Committee is a large group that's working through the strategic planning process at the university. We just met today, had some great discussion, conversation. They just wrapped up their survey that went out. I think that was a great meeting because I was really happy and pleased to see that students were really involved and really invested in this. I think they've interviewed over 60 students in student groups, and they have over 20 more scheduled. And there was over 1,000 students who filled out the survey. So we had just incredible amount of engagement from students, and we're definitely invested in this strategic planning process. So that was great to see. Otherwise, the Tuition and Fees Strategies Committee, our review process wrapped up on Tuesday. So we reviewed the College of Engineering, their college fees, as well as the College of Health and Human Sciences. Thanks to those of you in here who joined us for that. We approved both of those colleges' fees and all of their fees, and awaiting any proposals for any fee increases that may come forward. But otherwise, that portion of TFSC is wrapped up. Otherwise, that's really all I have. We've got a lot of great things going on over the executive branch. So if you're interested to hear more of what's going on, feel free to reach out at any time. But for now, I think that's all I've got.
Awesome. Thanks, Parker. Are there any questions for President Vogelmohr? Okay, seeing none, you may take your seat. With that, are there any further directors that would like to give a report tonight? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move into approval of allocations. So up for approval tonight, we have Bill 56, which is the fiscal year 2023 student allocation, the Kansas State University Student Chapter of Golf Course Superintendent Association of America, which was referred favorably from the Student Allocations Committee 9-0. They requested $3,000 and they were recommended $1,000. Is there a motion to approve the allocations? Chair Long.
I move to approve the allocations. Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the allocations. Are there any objections? Seeing none, the allocations will stand approved. And with that, we'll go ahead and move into final action for the evening. So if the author of Resolution 40 will please come forward. Resolution 40 was referred favorably from the Student Services Fee Committee 11-0. Were any changes made?
No changes made.
Your first rights to debate.
All right, everyone. So just as a reminder, this legislation is the transfer of funds from Lafine surplus to our general surplus account. For those of you who may not have been here last week, this is a resolution that essentially authorizes the transfer of some of those funds that we made back in 2020 after the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, this was a really unique and cool funding swap that allowed us some flexibility with our COVID relief dollars. And because those dollars, or because those test kits have already been purchased, and we are just utilizing our general surplus funds for a variety of things, this change needs to be undone, essentially, or the remaining balance of which just needs to be undone. So this is all that this legislation does, is authorizes that transfer. Please vote yes.
Awesome. Thanks, Blake. Seeing as that was debate in the positive, we're now seeking speeches in the negative. Are there any further speeches in the positive? And are there any further speeches at all? Okay, seeing none, we'll proceed into a hand vote on Resolution 40. So all those in favor of approving Resolution 40, raise your placards now. Proxies, please raise 2. All opposed, same sign. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Resolution 40 will pass. And with that, we'll go ahead and move into our introduction of legislation for the evening. So if there is a motion to consider, is there a motion to consider Bill 57? Senator Schweier.
I move to consider Bill 57.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 57. If the author will please come forward.
Okay, Bill 222357 is amendment to the KSU SGA bylaws regarding the naming of the SGA intern program. Authors Peyton Lynn, sponsors Senate Operations Committee. Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association should continue to update its programs to be reflective of the current state of the organization, whereas the KSU SGA intern program is defined in the KSU SGA bylaws as being the combination of the 5-week classes, mandatory regular meetings, the SGA mentor program, and the branch rotation. Whereas phase 1 of the intern program focuses on educating new members about SGA structures, procedures, and internal organization. Whereas phase 2 of the intern program places a focus on leadership development through a mentor-mentee program, identifying personal areas of interest for each intern, and developing targeted individual goals. Whereas the intern program is not meant for students to seek career-based internship opportunities, whereas the intern program does not entail SGA administrative duties or services for current KSU SGA members. Whereas intern program is a misleading title for the introductory program for emergent leaders of KSU SGA, whereas the title of KSU SGA intern does not accurately describe the duties of these emergent leaders, and whereas the name of the KSU SGA intern program and the title of the KSU SGA intern should be revised to more accurately reflect the purpose of the program. Be it enacted that Article 6 of the KSU SGA Student Governing Association bylaws be amended to read as follows. And then everywhere it says intern program is going to be changed to emerging leaders program. Everywhere that it says intern is going to be changed to mentee. And then everywhere it says intern coordinator, it will be emerging leaders coordinator. This legislation shall take effect upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president.
Awesome. Thanks, Peyton. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Okay, seeing none, you may take your seat. And with that, is there a motion to consider Bill 58? Chair Saya.
I move to consider Bill 58. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 58. If the author will please come forward.
All right. Creation of the KSU SGA Mental Health Resources Program. Authors Ethan Pilchard. Sponsors Strategic Oversight Committee. Whereas Kansas State University Student Governing Association is obligated to advocate on behalf of the KSU student body. Whereas the KSU SGA Strategic Oversight Committee, per Article 4, Section 11K3A of the KSU SGA bylaws, is empowered to open and maintain strategic plans of long-term KSU SGA objectives. Whereas KSU has a vested interest in the health and wellness of its students. Whereas all students are subject to unique pressures that may negatively impact their mental health and well-being. And whereas the proper support and operation of campus mental health services ought to be a prime objective. Be it enacted that the Kansas State University Student Governing Association shall establish a mental health resources plan. Section 2, the mental health resources plan shall enumerate the following principles. All students at KSU shall have awareness of mental health challenges and knowledge of the resources that can address them. All students at KSU deserve no less than the care of the duration and intensity demanded by their needs. KSU mental health services shall be supported as necessary to give all students appropriate care. Section 3, to achieve these goals, the Mental Health Resources Plan shall enumerate the following strategies. Number 1, the Student Governing Association should, on an annual basis, provide all office-holding members with basic mental health resource training. Number 2, the Student Governing Association shall create a task force to identify steps that would increase wellness and resource awareness within the organization. 3, the Student Services Fee Standing Committee should conduct a re-examination of the Student Governing Association's budget agreement with Lafine Health Center and CAPS. Number 4, KSU shall provide all incoming students with a condensed summary of their health-related resources. 5, KSU should develop and publish a long-term plan for the operations and capabilities of its mental health services. And 6, KSU should establish a service separate from CAPS that can aid students in adopting wellness habits and practices. Section 4, within its means, the Strategic Oversight Committee shall take action to achieve these strategies. And Section 5, this legislation shall take effect upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president.
Awesome. Thanks, Ethan. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? President Vogelmore.
Hey, where is this plan going to reside? Is this like a statutory thing, or where is this going to be outlined? Do you have a plan for that?
I can defer that to Chair Sa.
Yeah, so once this plan is adopted, the actual fancy document that includes all of these and all of the context is uploaded into Work Central.
Are there any further questions? Okay, Chair.
What is the reason behind Section 3, Number 6, a separate service for campus? Separate service besides campus?
Largely, that was due to a problem addressed by the lack of Shack being open for around 8 years, but there has been reports to my knowledge that there are bylaws and regulations revisions that are going to be conducted, so that should probably change that soon. So that will be changed.
Chair Long?
To clarify, you're going to get rid of that one, or?
Revise it.
Senator Brown.
So my main question that comes to mind is, where does the assumed funds necessary to make these changes and offer this support plan to be pulled from?
Great question. So we're looking at probably some cooperation. I'm going to be attending a student services fee meeting, kind of talk with Blake on this. Largely, it's going to be pulled from separate organizations, but it's going to be in a concerted large effort to reassess the current budgetary agreement and kind of gather consensus on caps and kind of with the vacancies and the positions filled and like what needs to be addressed kind of with the funding concerns. Also, a lot of the money that will be funded will be pulled from the previous bond surplus agreement that was pulled. So that should, which we just voted on. So that will also cover it.
Yeah, Senator Brown.
Just to clarify, so you plan to either use the funds that we just reallocated so that we would be able to better fund the programs we already need to fund, or like just continue to take money from other organizations?
There will be a long-term strategy developed on that. Again, this is an action plan, so it's listing out kind of the steps that SGA as a broader organization should take to kind of move forward in that direction, as well as like the establishment of a task force to kind of conduct it like a survey and kind of see what SGA's opinion is on this financially, as well as matters with advertisement and kind of reaching out and coordination. So that answers your question.
Senator Hubenig.
I don't know if this is within the reach of what we can do with Lafayette, but in the spring, I think we lost a psychologist or psychiatrist, and that was detrimental.
Correct.
So would this help solve, like, Lafayette helping trying to find that replacement? Because I know so many students have had to go elsewhere and pay out of pocket.
Yes, so this was an overwhelming concern addressed by the student body. I've had numerous people come to me referring to the drop in psychologists and professionals from 15 down to 11, but it's technically 9 because 2 of those are postdoctoral graduate students who are under training at the moment. So essentially, this would provide support and hopefully get that to where we need it to be, as well as potentially open room for discussion around the inclusion of another position suited for advertisement to kind of help with that. That will also help coordinate with SHAC once that kind of reestablishes, as well as the creation of that task force that can help better identify the concerns around campus through SGA as an outlet.
Point of information, what is SHAC?
The Student Health Advisory Council.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thanks, Ethan. You may take your seat. And with that, is there a motion to consider Bill 59? Chair Saya.
I move to consider Bill 59.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 59. If the author will please come forward.
Hi guys, my name is Rick Bryce. I'm the author. So our sponsors are the Strategic Oversight Committee. Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association is obligated to advocate on behalf of the KSU student body, Whereas KSU has a fundamental promise towards accessibility in higher education, whereas the extreme and ever-rising cost of attending universities nationwide is well documented, and whereas the pursuit of available financial aid, especially when it comes at no cost to KSU, ought to be a prime objective, be it enacted that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association shall establish a scholarship support plan. Section 2, the scholarship support plan shall enumerate the following principles. Online scholarship assistance portals shall be integrated with existing platforms to prioritize clarity, efficiency, and ease of use. Scholarship timelines, including those for outside scholarships, should be widely advertised to current and future K-State students. Students should have online and interpersonal resources to support the competitiveness of their scholarship applications. Section 3. To achieve these goals, the scholarship support plan shall enumerate the following strategies. The Kansas State University should integrate the K-State Scholarship Network with existing online platforms and, when possible, eliminate application redundancies for users. Kansas State University should expand its online platforms to include non-KSU affiliated outside scholarships. Kansas State University should, on an annual basis, poll students on the usability of its scholarship assistance programs. Kansas State University should require colleges and departments to advertise scholarships applications through group-wide messaging. Kansas State University should provide access for scholarship application assistance to all students post-admission. The Office of Student Financial Assistance should establish an application workshop service to support scholarship competitiveness. Section 4. The Strategic Oversight Committee shall, within its means, take action to achieve these strategies. Section 5. This legislation shall take effect upon passage by the Student Senate and signature of the student body president.
Thanks, Brooke. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Okay, seeing none, you may take your seat. And with that, is there a motion to consider Bill 60? Chair Saya.
I move to consider Bill 60.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 60. If the author will please come forward.
Hi, this is the creation of the KSU SGA Universal Academic Support Plan. So, sponsors of the Strategic Oversight Committee. Whereas the Kansas State University Student Governing Association is obligated to advocate on behalf of the KSU student body, whereas the KSU SGA Strategic Oversight Committee, per Article 4, Section 11, K3 of a KSU SGA bylaw, is empowered to open and maintain strategic plans for long-term KSU SGA objectives, whereas KSU has a wealth of courses and services provided to students, whereas in many cases, otherwise exceptional resources are confusing, obscured, or inaccessible for some students, and whereas maximizing the student understanding of their academic environment and ensuring equity across KSU's academic colleges ought to be prime objectives. Be it enacted that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association shall establish a universal academic support plan. Section 2, the Universal Academic Support Plan shall enumerate the following principles. Students across KSU's academic colleges should be given equitable support in their pursuit of their education and future opportunities. KSU should provide a clearly defined picture of its courses from enrollment to completion. Resources in support of students' academics across KSU's campuses should be user-friendly, accessible, and well advertised. Section 3, to achieve these goals, the Universal Academic Support Plan shall enumerate the following strategies. The university should establish at least one indoor 24-hour study area available to all students in all departments with the following resources: computer workstations, printers and scanners, internet connection, electrical outlets, and food vending. KSU should, on an annual basis, collect and release usage and interest data on its student services. KSU should establish an open syllabi database connected to the university course catalog, which makes available for each student courses current or past syllabi. KSU should require all teaching facilities to release their syllabi at least 1 week prior to the course start date. KSU should require all courses to be completed and post 20% to complete 20% of the course grade and post that grade prior to the full refund course drop date. I think we have to correct that language a little bit. KSU should establish an online index of its support services organized according to the student need. Section 4, with its means, the Strategic Oversight Committee shall take action to achieve these strategies. Section 5, the legislation shall take effect upon passage by the Student Senate and the signature of the student body president.
Thanks, Alexa. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Senator Hubenig.
Have you considered that some courses do not have A standardized drop date of the 100% deadline. Like there's a spreadsheet I'm looking at where VDMP, the class started on the 22nd of August. The drop date for the 100% deadline was the 24th of August.
So as far as I understand it, there is a standardized university drop date, but it depends on the length of the course. So like an 8-week course will have a shorter timeline between enrollment and the drop date, and then it'll be different depending on the course. I didn't think that it was on a course by course basis, but
There are some, sorry for clarification, there is a stats class or graduate stats class that I know is a 16-week course that has a deadline that was August 31st.
is that a 3-credit course? Okay, I'll have to look more into that, but I did think that at least for undergraduate, there is a standardized drop date, but
I
I'll
also
just
see
check.
ones that are counting 231.
Okay.
I love the premise. I'm just concerned that there's a spreadsheet that says otherwise.
Okay, I'll look more into that. However, in general, on the KSU website, there is like a calendar, an academic calendar, and that has the 100% refund drop date, and it's just a single day each semester. So, yeah.
Chair Phillips.
Yeah. In that first point in section 3, this may just be the former tour guide in me. We had like a phrase where it's like, we have 6 computer labs on campus, 3 of which are open 24 hours. So that was a couple of years ago. Do we know that there are currently no 24-hour computer labs?
So there are a few, like the engineering building has a bunch, and these are for engineering students. You need the engineering EID to access the computers. And that is true for other colleges as well. Lots of STEM colleges have 24-hour labs. But the library, I believe, is the library in the Union and buildings like that are the only all college, spaces for that kind of thing.
Chair Long.
Not entirely true. There are at least 11 rooms in the engineering building that you do not need an engineering EID to rent or use computers in them.
Well, I worked for engineering for a few years, and to get into the computers, you need the passcode to log in. As someone who used to log in with the engineering EID and someone who cannot now, I've tried this, especially the main ones, like 1111, I believe is the number on the main floor. So.
Jeremy.
Point of information, I know the way that the KSU computers for most of the STEM colleges, I can't speak to every college, but at least STEM, they operate on a virtual box system where the computer itself is very bare bones and it's a graphics system, and you use your college ID to log into the database, which is deeper within the actual college itself. So in the physics department, except for the library computer, which closes at 6, students are unable to use any K-State physics computers in the computer labs, to my knowledge. So I think engineering is similar.
Yeah, the main floors are there's the main one over in the new engineering complex. If you try and log in with that computer and you're not in the engineering college, you will come up with a screen that says, sorry, these are incorrect credentials.
In some of the conferences, at least, I watched a business major do it the other day. So
in the conference.
Okay, folks, this definitely sounds like a conversation that we could be having off the floor. Are there any further questions? President Vogelmore.
Yeah, so my question isn't necessarily substantive reading into the legislation as much. I like the intent. My question is more so, help me understand a little bit with the last 3 pieces, bills 58, 59, and 60. I recognize this is kind of a new type of legislation the Strategic Oversight Committee is relatively new. So we're establishing a universal academic support plan here that resides as a document enumerating these things, a document on Org Central. At what point, Section 3 of the Be It Enacted clause is clearly calling on the university administration, requesting these things as if this were a general resolution. But Section 5 of the Be It Enacted clause, it just says, this legislation shall take effect. What is taking effect? What happens here? What goes on from here with this legislation?
Well, I can answer that a little bit, and then I guess I can defer to Nick. But the way I think of it is kind of analogous to the UN, where you can't necessarily fund and you can't necessarily sanction, but you can have you can have documents that give general objectives of what you want, and then that can be delegated out later. But I'll let Nick go for it.
Alexa?
Yeah.
So Parker, you're absolutely right. This is similar to like a bunch of different resolutions glued together. But the whole reason why we have the committee is because resolutions were not that great at getting done what we wanted to get done. That's because the way that they're presented is not the best way to communicate with people outside of our organization, and it's not the best way to communicate with people in the future in our organization. So our plans are structured so that students years down the line can read these strategies or these objectives and understand them and start to ask for them. It's
So
fun.
as in asking for them in form of a resolution?
Yes. This piece of legislation that we would vote on next week wouldn't itself be sent to anybody. That's what the plan is supposed to do.
So I guess follow up if I can. Essentially, it's just, here are some ideas of things that we think we have that we would like to get on paper that could live into the future because they are on paper. And should students in the future latch on to one of these ideas and want to write a resolution to that extent?
This document gives us a foundation to work off of. So it becomes the mission of the Strategic Oversight Committee to do one of two things with every single strategy that we identify. The first thing is complete it. We, through resolutions or through conversations, whatever means, convince a person that actually has the power to make that decision to make that decision. The second avenue is we discover that it's not possible. A lot of the things that we as students think are possible are for one reason or another not going to happen, right? So we have avenues to strike those from the plan, but we keep them as context toward our greater objective. Basically, we work through the list of strategies until they're all gone, and that's that.
Okay. So, but I guess in voting to pass or approve these pieces of legislation at some point in time, I mean, we are agreeing as a legislative body, or the legislative body is agreeing that these are all things that we agree on and want to do.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. Absent what we can do, these are all things that, philosophically speaking, we should do and would be good for students.
Okay. I think that answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah, Senator Barron.
I know you said you would revise the wording on Section 3, Part 5, but could you just explain the original intent of it?
Yeah, so the idea is that by the time that the full refund drop date occurs, 20% of your total course grade has been posted onto Canvas or has been assigned, basically, not assigned, but has been completed and is available for you to see. So that way you could drop if you know, the exam was way harder than you anticipated when you enrolled in the class, things like that.
Chair Phillips.
Yeah.
Yeah, just curious. How was that 20% number decided upon?
Well, because this is kind of a long-standing idea that students kind of pass around that we should have an exam before the drop date. And of course, exams are not always the method used in every single class. And so we figured that in most cases an exam is about 20%. And so we figured that that was a good standard to do for this. I don't think we crunched the exact numbers, but I think we kind of estimated that it's about 20% of the way through the semester too. But again, if we could get an exact correlation between the percentage of the way through the semester and the amount of course completed.
Senator Hubenig.
Is there a concern about the shorter classes with that, I guess, 20% deadline with the batches that aren't 16 weeks? Because that is a strain on students and TAs and the professor.
Yeah, well, I think that the sentiment still holds. Like, even if it's an 8-week course, you still need to be able to get your money back from that class if it's going to be wildly out of your realm that you can do for that semester. So I think that I believe that an 8-week course, I don't know this for sure, but I believe the drop date's after the first week. It might even be in the second or third week. And I think that, yes, that would be a strain, but for such a short course, you should still be having consistent grades being posted to Canvas.
Intern Glasscock.
Would it be required for new professors to have a complete idea of their assignments and points going into their first teaching semester for this?
I think no, but I think you should still have a syllabus, finished and available to students a week before the course starts. And most professors on their syllabuses, especially if they don't have it perfectly figured out, they will have like a TBD. They will have like a clause that says, I reserve the right to change this syllabi. And this legislation does not change that. So it's still not a binding document when they have that clause. So I think that there's still room for that kind of thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Will they also be held to the 20% of total grade for that? Because some professors may not know their total grade.
Yes, I think so. I mean, at least that's what the Strategic Oversight Committee decided. I think that even if they're a new professor and even if they don't know exactly what percentages of what is going to go to their final grade, I think that should be a standardized thing for fairness for the students who are paying a lot of money for these courses. I think it's only fair that we have a general idea of what's happening before we pay for the classes.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thanks, Alexa. You can take your seat. I know there were a lot of questions on those last three bills, folks, so I do just want to say that those will all three be referred back to the Strategic Oversight Committee. If you have thoughts, feelings, opinions that you'd like to be registered, you can feel free to attend the Strategic Oversight Committee meeting. That is Monday at 7. Nick, are you in the business building again this week?
No, we're in Hale, I want to say 407.
Hale 407, but if you want to attend Nick's meeting, you can reach out to him and get all the details. I know they'd be more than happy to have you. And with that, we'll go ahead and move into introduction on Bill 61. So is there a motion to consider Bill 61? Vice Chair Hoffman.
I move to consider Bill 61.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Bill 61. If the author will please come forward.
Alrighty. Bill 22-2361, fiscal year 2024 allocation of sports club funds. Authors myself, sponsors the Student Allocations Committee. Whereas the Student Allocations Committee received and reviewed the budget requests of sports clubs below, all registered organizations were given ample opportunity and notification of their ability to submit funding requests. Whereas 23 of the possible 23 requesting clubs either presented budget proposals to the Student Allocations Committee or submitted video requests. Whereas a total of $298,435.23 was requested by organizations, equaling 456% of the total amount to allocate. Whereas Kansas State University Student Governing Association, KSU-SGA, Statute 200103A3 enumerates that sports clubs must compete at an intercollegiate level to the National Collegiate Athletic Association. Whereas Chapter 51 of the KSU-SGA statute states that $65,470 shall be dispersed to sports clubs on a yearly basis. Whereas Chapter 51 of the KSU-SGA statutes also stipulates that the funds in the sports club's reserve account, NISA SPC RSV, shall only be allocated to clubs attending a qualified national competition or to new clubs. Whereas the balance of the sports club's reserve account, NISA SPC RSV, is currently $20,312.57. Whereas all funds must be used per funding guidelines have been allocated accordingly. Whereas funds requested by these groups and funding recommendations are as follows. Triathlon Club requested $2,500 and was recommended 0. Table Tennis Club was recommended $4,000 and was requested $4,000, recommended $1,300. Shotgun Sports Clubs requested $93.50 and was recommended $4,000. Rodeo Team was requested $33,595 and was recommended $44.47. Water Ski Club requested $1,750 and was recommended $1,000. IHSA Equestrian Club Team requested $25,000 and was recommended $2,100. Bowling Club requested $21,000 and was allocated $50-50. Crew requested $36,408.23 and was recommended $23.23. Esports Club at KSU requested $5,700 and was recommended $2,000. Inline Hockey Club requested 8,000, was recommended 4,000. Fencing Club requested 30,000, was recommended 0. Tennis Club was requested 1,000, was recommended 1,000. Women's Volleyball Club requested 11,450, was recommended 4,500. Club Softball requested 4,810 and was recommended 2,320. Club Baseball requested 13,000, was recommended 4,000. Women's lacrosse requested 5,000, was recommended requested 500 and was recommended 500. Swim and dive at KSU requested 18,000, was recommended 6,000. Fishing team requested 15,000 and was recommended 5,250. Women's club soccer requested 4,000 and was recommended 2,500. Men's volleyball club requested 11,000 and was recommended 3,360. Men's rugby recommended 12,000 and was recommended 3,970. Paintball team requested 15,300 and was recommended 3,350. And men's lacrosse club at KSU requested 15,000 was recommended 3,500, totaling the 298 435 23 and 66 470 total. Be it enacted that Section 1, the 65,470 dispersed to the sports club shall be allocated as specified above. Section 2, an additional $1,000 be allocated from the sports club reserves to tennis club. Section 3, upon passage by the student senate and signature of the student body president, these funds will be transferred from NISA SPC RSV to their respective accounts to each sports club above, or distributed upon signing of the award agreement by members of the sport club as required by the university. That was a lot of numbers, sorry.
Awesome. Thanks, Jacob. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Caucus Leader Oury.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Okay, so why were the clubs that requested, like, for example, 30,000 given 0?
So,
were they just, like, trying to make a team?
Kind of. So that whereas clause on line 20, they have to be competing at the NCAA or equivalent league, triathlon club and fencing club do not.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Senator Kamen.
On line 51, it says women's volleyball ball. Is this volleyball club?
No, that's right. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Are there any further questions? Chair Phillips.
Yeah, Jacob, would you mind just walking us through the general kind of how you decide how much amount or what amount teams get?
So they obviously give us a budget. I see my committee members laughing. They give us a budget, and then during the presentation, they reset the budget again. And part of what they did this year was ask, what is the priority? Because obviously we had a lot more requested than what we actually could allocate. So the committee asked, what is the priority, what you need here? And that was factored into it, as well as amount of benefit to number of students. So clubs that had lower barriers to entry with a higher number of students that cost less, those were favored most times. And then clubs that fundraised a lot also were directed more funds.
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thanks so much, Jacob. You can take your seat. And with that, is there a motion to consider Resolution 42? Senator Schweier.
I move to consider Resolution 42. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to consider Resolution 42. If the author will please come forward.
All right, Resolution 22-2342, recommendation to change Student Health Advisory Committee bylaws. Author is me, Jessica Binkley, sponsored by Maddie Carey, Marta Richenberg, Ethan Brown, Manny Uguibu, and Caleb Stout. Whereas the Kansas State Student Governing Association, KSU-SGA, regularly makes changes to the governing documents to keep them up to date, whereas the Student Health Advisory Committee, or SHAC, hasn't been used to the extent that it should, whereas there is more demand for the SHAC now than ever, partially due to the search for a new Executive Director of Student Wellbeing, whereas suggestions from the Morrison Family Associate Vice President for Student Wellbeing, Assistant Director of Lafine Counseling and Psychological Services, Lafine Director of Administrative Services, and Lafine Medical Director have been considered, and whereas changing the SHAC bylaws is the first step in revamping the committee. Be it resolved that Section 1, the Kansas State University Student Governing Association, KSU-SGA, approves the following amendments to the Student Health Advisory Committee bylaws. So, line 35A, under Article 2, the purpose just strikes the Lafine Health Center director to change it to the new term, Executive Director of Student Wellbeing. And then it also strikes the University Counseling Services Director in line 36. Again, that'll be under the Executive Director of Student Wellbeing. Line 36 also strikes physical or mental health to change it to just well-being needs. And then B strikes the University Counseling and Psychological Services Director. And then in E through, in E it starts to support the staff of Lafine Health Center in their development of quality health services for the fee-paying students. F, to support the staff of Lafine CAPS in their delivery of quality mental health services for clients at no additional cost beyond the student services fee. G, to support the staff of the Morrison Family Center for Student Wellbeing in their service of quality holistic wellbeing and prevention initiatives. H, to support the staff of Cats Covered in their development of quality programming and resources to address food and hygiene product needs for students. I, to promote holistic well-being and the services offered by Lafine Health Center, Lafine CAPS, Morrison Family Center for Student Wellbeing, and Cats Covered. J, to aid students in making healthy decisions to be successful while in college and after they graduate from Kansas State University. Article 3, membership, lines 59 and 60, add at least 6 student voting members and a maximum of 16 members. Line 62 strikes the term limit, a maximum of 2 terms. Lines 64 and 65 strike B and C, 2 students appointed by Student Health Services and 3 at-large members decided through the SGA at-large application. And then lines 67 and 68 add a new section B, 5 to 15 members decided through an SGA application appointed by a membership selection committee. Section 2 adds the SGA liaison appointed by the executive branch will be the president, and then adds the positions event planning coordinator, marketing and tabling coordinator, and student insurance advisory committee liaison to be elected from the remaining members. Section 3 again changes the term from the director of the Student Health Center, or direct as they had it, to Executive Director of Student Wellbeing, and then strikes B and C, representatives from the Health Promotions Department and Association Director for Administration, to have a new B, being representatives from Lafine Health Center, Lafine CAPS, Morrison Family for Student Wellbeing, and or Cats Covered. Section 4, lines 85 and 86 take out the 4 semesters over a consecutive 2-year period. Again, that's taking out the term limit. And then E adds to provide a positive image for K-State, SHAC, Lafine Health Center, Lafine CAPS, Morrison Family Center for Student Wellbeing, and Cats Covered. F, promote K-State, SHAC, Lafine Health Center, Lafine CAPS, Morrison Family Center for Student Wellbeing, and Cats Covered individually. And G, be knowledgeable of above-mentioned departments and their missions and the mission of SHAC. Section 5, line 101 strikes with coordination from the student health director. And then line 105 adds organize the membership selection committee and chair the selection process. 5, act as the committee's liaison to Executive Director of Student Wellbeing staff, the student body president, and university administrators. Line 112 makes the vice president responsible for the resource spotlight at 1 meeting per month, which it would help to inform the committee about different resources at K-State. They would coordinate and bring in a representative from a student service for a short presentation and or to facilitate a content relevant activity. And then the secretary, adding that the minutes just be sent to the SHAC president and the executive director of student wellbeing. Striking in 121, including the director of health center and director of health promotions. And then D, adding the event planning coordinator that will organize fall and spring activities carnivals, work with UPC for finals de-stressor activity, help to organize the annual Get the Scoop event and outreach to other groups on campus. E, adding the marketing and table coordinator to advertise events, including developing displays, creating ads for the Collegian, creating flyers, chalking, etc. Utilize the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and other modes of communication to market events and services, and organize all tabling efforts. And then F, the Student Insurance Advisory Committee liaison, which will communicate all events and pertinent information to the K-State Student Insurance Advisory Committee, attend all SIAC meetings, and report any pertinent information gathered at the SIAC to the SHAC. Article 4, Section 1, it adds the primary requirement for membership on the committee is a high level of interest in students' physical health, mental health, and then it adds the well-being and effectiveness of student well-being services. Section 2, lines 148 to 150, strike that the student body president shall send the at-large appointments and the executive branch appointments to the director of student health 2 weeks after the student at-large application closes, and adds that the SHAC president shall send the appointments to the student body president and the executive director of student well-being within 2 weeks of the committee being selected. Article 5, Section 1, again, just changes the Lafine Health Center director to executive director of student well-being. And same thing in Section 5.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Jess. Are there any questions or corrections for the author? Chief of Staff Ritzenberg.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have a record, but is there any way we can change the executive director of well-being to executive director of student health and well-being services? I think that's the full official name of that position.
Sounds good.
Chair Phillips.
I don't know if this is a correction or a suggestion, because I think that we got this in prior legislation last year, but on line 44, it says privilege fee. Can we just change that to student services fee?
Are there any further questions? Okay, seeing none, thanks so much, Jess. You can take your seat. And with, excuse me. And with that, we have exhausted our legislative agenda for the evening, so we'll go ahead and move into our second open period. Are there any second open period speakers this evening? Intern Coordinator Lynn.
So I promised all of the interns today at the meeting that we would be having an SGA Thanksgiving. And so I'm telling all of you about it now because the interns already think it's happening. So I am inviting all of SGA next week at 5:30 during the regular intern meeting time before Senate starts. I have like a sign-up sheet. I'll do like a potluck style Thanksgiving dinner sort of situation if everyone wants to bring some kind of snack or what have you. I just think that would be a really fun social little event for all of us to get together with the different branches and everything. So please show up next Thursday, 5:30 p.m. here.
Awesome, thanks, Peyton. Are there any further second open period speakers this evening? Vice Chair Hoffman.
This is a quick one, guys. I just have a question for you. Achoo! What do you say to that? Bless you. Okay, I say Gesundheit, and my friend Andrew Navarro didn't know what that was, and I just wanted to see if I was in the right or he was. So could we do like a raising hand? Yeah. Of who uses Gesundheits? Not that many. Okay, and then who says bless you?
Yeah, who's normal?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jacob. Are there any further second open period speakers this evening? Okay, seeing none, Juan will take it away with Senate shoutouts.
There is only one Senate shout out this week. Shout out to sneezing.
Okay, with that, I will go ahead and refer the legislation. So we have Bills 57 and Bill 57 and Resolution 42 will be going to the Senate Operations Committee. Bills 58, 59, and 60 will go to the Strategic Oversight Committee, and Bill 61 will go to the Student Allocations Committee. And with that, Juan will take it away with our second roll call.
All right, everybody. Anderson. Here. Bannister. Barron.
Here.
Blood. Here. Broughton. Here. Brown. Carey.
Here.
Compton.
Here.
Coy.
Here.
Davidson. DePaz. Dole.
Here.
Gromis. Heatherman.
Here.
Hoffman.
Here.
Hubnik.
Here.
Kemen.
Here.
Kappelman.
Here.
Kirshen. Kidd. Kermer.
Here.
Labidi.
Here.
Long.
Here.
Midall.
Here.
Noretti.
Here.
Navarro.
Here.
Owry.
Here.
Pelton.
Here.
Phillips.
Here.
Pilchard.
Here.
Syatt Carly.
Here.
Syatt Nick.
Here.
Shear.
Here.
Schweier.
Here.
Stout.
Here.
Strout.
Here.
Talbert.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
And Wolf. All right, thanks everyone.
Thanks, everybody. With that, is there a motion to adjourn? Senator Hubenig.
I motion to adjourn this meeting until next Thursday, same time, same place.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn until next Thursday at the same time in the same place. Are there any objections? Seeing none, we'll stand adjourned at 8:27 p.m.
Yeah, it would have been really cool. No one.